Is China ready for the world? Is the world ready for China? Today, we have an amazing lineup of guests to answer that question with a spectrum of experience crossing fields from trade negotiations, media, film, news, management, and of course, cultural cross-communication. Li Zhao, who do we have today?
Our first guest is Mr. Douglas Gerber. He is the founder and CEO of Focus One.
Douglas, I remember in 1992, we were here in Beijing, and you closed a negotiation for Kodak with Xiamen Fuda, and that was the largest trade dispute in the history of China-U.S. relations, and you closed that. How did you do that?
I actually did that because I understood that people want to come together. And the key is that you have to bring different parties together. You can't just think about your own self-interest, and you can't think about the interest of the foreign company. So as we put things together, what we realized is that everybody find a common interest between parties. And if you can do that, you can close the deals. And that's what we did in 1992.
And it's your knowledge of entry into markets and cultural communication which is so essential. Because I remember Pepsi came and grabbed you. They recruited you from Kodak. They stole you away from Kodak to open their whole marketing campaign in China. I remember Wang Fei's picture was there with Pepsi and stars. And how did Pepsi actually overtook Coke in the market? You did that.
Yeah, in many markets, including Shanghai and Chengdu, in Guangzhou, in Sichuan, we overtook Coke, and we did that also by relating to young people in China. Blue is trendy, red is older. So with the trendy part of blue, people said, I want to be part of Pepsi-Cola, and that's how we took over Coke.
So subliminal seduction of colors, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Now, you've moved on, you've set up your own consulting company, you are training CEOs and management in China and Chinese CEOs and management of international markets. Tell us about what you're doing now.
Okay, so I actually came to China in 1986 was my first trip to China. And in 1986, I found that everybody was thinking about themselves. And this IQ. It was all into an individual intelligence and IQ. Then we moved over to EQ, which is emotional intelligence, people becoming more sensitive to one another. Now I think that for China to be successful, it has to move into TQ, or Team Quotient. And that's essentially the title of the book that I wrote, Team Quotient, which essentially says if you want to be successful, and you want to be successful in China, you have to think about the collective. You have to move from IQ to EQ to TQ.
Team Quotient, your new book, is subtitled How to Build High-Performance Leadership Teams That Win Every Time.
That's right.
So is China's trade negotiation team going to have you come on board as an advisor to deal with Donald Trump? What do you think?
Well, what I would say is that you have to move away from individual leaders. You have to build a very successful leadership team if you want to be successful. You can't rely on an individual leadership now in today's world. You have to empower teams around the world. And that's the focus of what we try to do.
You have to have the willingness because you want to achieve something. And based on that mutual goal and the willingness, and I always talk this to my client also, you have to have this win-win situation. It's not about you or the other person. It's about we do this together so that we can achieve our goal together as a group.
That's what Douglas was talking about, group management, teamwork, right?
That's right. It only really works when you have people coming together and focusing on the team as opposed to focusing on the individual. So moving from a self-centered approach to a group or team collective approach, that's the success, and I think that's what's going to create success for China in the future.
And you know, that's what makes our program a success. We've just got a great team working with us here at CGTN.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our next guest, who is news and media.